Hi guys, welcome back to Whiskey and Walks. My name is Ed. So today we are going to be taking a look at the Hook Head Single Farm Origin, which is from Waterford Whisky. So before we begin, I suppose Waterford Whisky is kind of iconic for their Single Farm Origin series, and I went on a tour of the Waterford distillery this summer. My tour guide was Lauren. It was absolutely amazing. And I also did a Waterford tasting with Lauren as well at the Southeast Whisky Festival last year. So what's original, different, fun, unique, I suppose, about Waterford Whisky? Well, Waterford Whisky is kind of rooted in the idea of a thing called terroir. We don't really have a concept of terroir as strongly in whiskey as in other industries, but it is a major thing in the wine industry, I suppose. If you go to France or other wine producing countries, they will be able to tell you a lot about the terroir. What that basically means is how the soil, climate, all of those aspects influences the growth of, in the case of wine, grapes, in the case of a whiskey, grain. So Waterford have partnered with a number of different farmers, and they get to grow the grain exclusively for Waterford, pass it on to them, and Waterford have 100% traceability then of the grain all the way back to the source with the farmer. I think it's really cool if you buy a bottle of Waterford Whisky and you look on the back, there is going to be a code that they refer to as the terroir code. They've inserted the word Éire for Ireland in the middle of the word terroir, which I think is a really cool and unique way of stamping their own personality on it. And what that code allows you to do is go onto the website, put in the code, and you can see all the details about the liquid that is in your bottle of whiskey.
So I put my terroir code into the Waterford Whisky website just to see what information it would give me. It's giving me all the key facts, like the grower is Martin Foley, the farm that it came from, the dates that it was harvested, distilled, bottled, and more. It gives me some information about Hook Head, including the sound of Hook Head that you can listen to on SoundCloud, and again some more information about the farmer Martin Foley, who I got to see at Hook Head. Didn't get to speak to, unfortunately. There's a timeline of how the barley was processed, the names of all the distillers that were involved in the project, more information about Hook Head as a farming site, some information about the soil, the barley, the yeast and the water, some observations from the head distiller, which is quite what you might expect from a tasting notes, and then you have all this information about the wood that was used in the barrels. You got the cask number, cask type, cooperage, fill date, farm, and more. All of this information is not really going to be relevant if you just want to enjoy a really nice glass of whiskey, but I think it's an excellent example of how consumer transparency can be done in the whiskey industry, and it's really interesting.
I just think that's a really amazing and cool way to build rapport with consumers and make sure that there's maximum kind of transparency and traceability there for consumers. Not to suggest that companies that aren't doing that have something to hide, but I really think that that's cool that the consumer gets to have an idea of where this came from and the whole track, I suppose, of the whiskey from grain going into the soil to the glass that we have in our hand. Another interesting thing that I only realised recently when I looked very closely at this bottle of Waterford is that Waterford Whisky spell the name of their distillery and the name of their product without an E. They use the WHISKY spelling of the word whiskey. Legally, there's absolutely no problem with that. You can use an E or you can not use an E, but it is traditional for Irish distilleries to use an E. I don't know why that is. I would have to guess that it's probably got something to do with Mark Rainier, the man behind Waterford Whisky, and the fact that he came from Bruichladdich, which is a distillery based in Scotland where they do not use the E traditionally. So maybe that's his kind of Scottish roots in the whiskey industry coming through. If you know why that is, I'd love to hear down in the comments. If you're like, no, Ed, you're totally wrong, now you're just spouting nonsense on YouTube. It wouldn't be the first time. So what about the whiskey in the glass? Hook Head is located by the sea, and I think the idea of the Waterford Single Farm Origin series is to see if grains from different locations really have a difference and how that impacts the flavour in the glass. And for me, I definitely do think that maybe you wouldn't say that you can know immediately that it's coastal, but when I know where this comes from, and this might be a kind of a chicken and egg scenario, am I getting these flavors because I know it's from the coast, or do I kind of know it's from the coast from smelling the whiskey in front of me, tasting the whiskey in front of me? So this whiskey has a kind of a slightly salty quality to it. I wouldn't say it smells like the sea, but it definitely has, to me, a kind of a salty quality. I think there's kind of a nice warm rubber smell off it, which sounds weird for a whiskey, but it's a lovely, lovely, lovely whiskey on the nose. It's nice and round, and you get all those kind of classic malt whiskey notes on the nose as well, kind of caramel and toffee. It's absolutely delicious on the nose. Now we'll go for a taste. Cheers. An absolutely delicious whiskey to taste. I actually have my whiskey diary here, and I have the notes on the Waterford Hookhead that I took the first time I ever had this whiskey at the Waterford Whisky tasting at the Southeast Whisky Festival last year. And I really think that the notes I took then are still the notes that I really get from it. I wrote down it has a warm sweetness, maple syrup kind of taste, a toasty clove, kind of a caramel cream taste or butterscotch taste almost, and then a kind of a light peppery spice on the finish. And that's absolutely exactly what I'm getting now as I take a sip of that from the glass. It's a delicious whiskey. And I would say this will not be the last time that we're drinking Waterford whiskey on this channel. And I really do think that you can't go wrong with any of the Waterford whiskey releases. The single farm ones are delicious. The cuvées are delicious. My girlfriend Katie is a particular fan of the biodynamic whiskey, which we might swipe and have a glass of on the channel here in a couple of weeks. If you have ever tasted the Waterford Hookhead whiskey and you'd like to tell me what you thought of it down below, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments.
So for today's walk, for obvious reasons, I thought we would visit Hook Lighthouse, found on Hook Head. It's the oldest operational lighthouse in the world, built in the 13th century. Hook Head is a peninsula in County Wexford in the southeast of Ireland. When I tell you that Martin Foley's farm, where the grain from my whiskey was grown, is right next to the lighthouse, I literally mean that the boundary wall separates the car park from Martin Foley's farm. We actually saw Martin and some of the other farmers working in the field when we were down there, but I didn't get a chance to chat to him. I decided against trying to get my bottle of whiskey autographed because, as many people will know, farmers don't appreciate being approached in the field when they're operating heavy machinery. The weather was pretty bad the day that I was down in Hook, so we didn't get to go for too much of a walk. It might go without saying in a place where the oldest operational lighthouse in the world is, but when the weather gets bad on Hook Head, it gets pretty bad pretty quickly. Hook Head is one of the most interesting and unique parts of the east coastline of Ireland. It's really popular with photographers and those who enjoy water sports, so it's often quite busy. Hook Lighthouse was built by William Marshall and was finished in 1230. The original beacon was a coal fire beacon, but that was replaced by an electric beacon in 1972. In 2009, full automation was brought in, so there are actually no more lighthouse keepers at Hook Lighthouse. Hook Lighthouse is iconic with enthusiasts around the world, and although it was originally red and white, it got its iconic black and white colour scheme in 1933. Hook Head is really interesting. It has loads of really cool nooks, crannies and inlets, which can be really fun to explore on a nice day. One of the most popular walks for people who enjoy Hook Head is the Slade to Hook Head walk, which is about a 6.5 kilometre walk out and back from where you can park your car. You will see people fishing and swimming at Hook Head if you go on a nice day, but it's really important to remember that the water conditions can be unpredictable, so if you're going to go swimming, make sure that you do it safely, be aware of the conditions and don't go alone. Another really cool thing about Hook Head is that the limestone around the shore is one of the most fossilised areas in Ireland. If you look closely, you can see fossils from mollusks, shells and corals that go back millions and millions of years, although you will have to look pretty closely to find them. Hook Head has traditionally been a really popular camping spot. You would always see tents and camper vans down there in the spring and summer months. Unfortunately, Wexford County Council have banned this now, and you'll see signs up that prohibit camping. Not entirely sure why this is, but it may have come down to antisocial behaviour, littering and lack of respect for the site, which is really unfortunate for people who wanted to camp responsibly. Hook Head is definitely one of my favourite spots in Ireland, and if you have any thoughts about Hook Head or the Hook Head whiskey from Waterford Whisky, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them down below, and I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe for more videos. Any recommendations on videos you'd like to see would be really appreciated.